I didn't suspect him of cheating. Not really. Mark was steady, predictable, like a well-maintained Honda Accord in a world full of flashy, unreliable Teslas. 12 years of marriage, a mortgage we barely kept up with in suburban Ohio, two kids who thought date night meant watching Bluey together after bedtime. Romance wasn't dead, it was just napping, deeply, under a pile of laundry and PTA emails. Which is why, when he started coming home late smelling faintly of unfamiliar perfume, not floral but something sharp, clean, like expensive hand soap, I chalked it up to stress. His tech startup was floundering. Layoffs were rumoured. He'd been working late at the office more and more. I'd text, "Dinner's getting cold." He'd reply, "Stuck in back-to-backs. Order pizza. Love you." Standard corporate spouse stuff. Exhausting but normal. Then came the Tuesday that shattered my normal. It was Lily's 7th birthday. We'd planned a small party, cupcakes, her favourite unicorn cartoon, maybe a bouncy castle if the rain held off. Mark had promised, sworn, he'd be home by 4 p.m. "No meetings after 3, he'd said that morning, kissing my forehead distractedly while scrolling through emails. Priority 1, Lily's big day. 4:15 p.m. No Mark. 5 Gutman p.m. Lily's eyes, wide with hopeful disappointment, kept darting to the driveway. 5:45 p.m. My phone buzzed. Not a call. A text. "Emergency client crisis in Chicago. Had to jump on last-minute flight. So sorry, babe. Rain check the party. Send Lulu extra cupcakes. Love you both." Chicago? He'd said nothing about Chicago. No packing, no frantic searching for his passport. And Lulu. He never called her Lulu. Only her grandparents did. My stomach dropped like a stone into icy water. Not anger, not yet. Just a cold, sickening wave of wrongness. This wasn't Mark. Mark forgot anniversaries, yes. He left socks everywhere, absolutely. But he never missed Lily's birthday, never. And he hated flying, hated the hassle, the delays, the lack of control. A last-minute trip to Chicago for a client at his failing startup? It made zero sense. The party limped to a quiet end. Lily cried silent tears into her unicorn cupcake. I held her, murmuring lies about Daddy's important work, my own throat tight with a dread I couldn't name. After she fell asleep, I sat in the dark living room, the crumpled birthday streamers looking like sad confetti. My eyes landed on his laptop, left open on the kitchen counter. A rare lapse. Usually he was paranoid about privacy, especially with sensitive investor stuff. A terrible gnawing suspicion took root. Not cheating, but something else? Embezzlement, gambling debt, the perfume, the lies, the sudden trip. I didn't want to look. Good wives don't snoop. Trust is the foundation. But the foundation felt like it was crumbling under my feet, and I needed to know if the house was about to collapse. My fingers trembled as I touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. He was logged into his work email. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Just check the calendar. See if there's a Chicago trip." I clicked the calendar app. Nothing. No flights, no meetings in Chicago. Just his usual local appointments. Then, out of habit, I clicked the browser history, mostly work stuff, news sites, Amazon. Then, a string of searches that made my blood freeze. How to tell if your child is yours. Paternity test at-home kit discreet. Custody rights Ohio unmarried father. Best pediatrician Cincinnati, Cincinnati. That was only an hour away, not Chicago. And paternity test, custody. The room tilted, my vision blurred. Our child? Lily? Mark thought. He thought Lily wasn't his, but that was impossible. We'd been together since college, exclusive, monogamous as far as I knew. Lily had his nose, his stubborn chin, his. Unless there was another child, a different child in Cincinnati, the perfume, the late nights. The sudden need for money he claimed was for business development, which I'd naively covered with my own freelance design gigs, thinking I was helping us. The pieces crashed together with horrifying clarity. He wasn't having an affair with a colleague. He had another family, a secret life, and he'd used our daughter's birthday as cover to go see them. Rage, white-hot and pure, surged through me, burning away the shock. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. He'd stolen years of my life, my trust, my energy, my love, and funneled it into this hidden reality an hour down I-71. I didn't call him, didn't confront him, not yet. I needed proof. I needed to see it, to understand the depth of the lie before I decided how to burn him down. I waited until 2 a.m. He texted, landed, heading to hotel, exhausted, talk tomorrow. Another lie. He wasn't in Chicago. He was in Cincinnati, probably tucking his other daughter into bed. I woke up at 5 a.m., packed a bag with essentials, my camera phone fully charged, and my most nondescript clothes. Left a note for my mum. Emergency work trip, back late. Lily's school permission slip on fridge. The hypocrisy of it tasted like bile. The drive to Cincinnati was a blur of rain-slicked highways and a mind screaming in silent agony. I'd memorized the address from his browser history, a pediatrician's office downtown. If he had a child there, maybe that's where he'd go, or maybe daycare. I had nothing but a city and a name, Dr. Evans Pediatric Associates. I arrived by 8 a.m., parking down the block. The office was in a clean, modern building. My hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. What am I even doing? I thought. Confronting him? Causing a scene? Getting arrested? But the image of Lily's tear-streaked face on her birthday cake propelled me forward. I didn't go in. I watched. For 2 hours. Rain drumming on the roof of my car. Then, just before 10 a.m., I saw him, Mark, walking down the street holding the hand of a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. Blonde pigtails, a bright yellow raincoat skipping beside him. He was smiling. Not the tired, distracted smile he gave Lily and me. A real smile. Warm, present, engaged. He bent down, adjusted her rain boot, said something that made her giggle, a sound I hadn't heard from him in years. He pushed the door open to Dr. Evans' office. They disappeared inside. I sat there, paralysed. The world narrowed to that doorway. Our daughter? The phrase echoed in my head, now twisted into a sick joke. His daughter. With her. Who was the mother? I scanned the street. No sign of her. Maybe she dropped them off. Maybe she worked. The not knowing was its own torture. I couldn't just sit. I needed to see her. The mother. The other woman who had stolen my husband, my life, my future. I waited. 45 agonizing minutes later, Mark emerged, alone. The little girl wasn't with him. He looked satisfied, calm. He walked to a sleek, unfamiliar black SUV parked nearby, not our minivan, and drove off. Where was the girl? Still inside? With the mother? I took a deep, shuddering breath. This was insane, dangerous, but I'd come this far. I got out of the car, walked to the building entrance, and pushed through the doors of Dr. Evans' Pediatric Associates. The waiting room was cheerful, bright murals, toys, the smell of antiseptic and apple juice. A few tired-looking parents sat with kids. Behind the reception desk, a friendly-looking woman smiled. "Good morning, how can we help you?" My mind raced. "Hi," I said, forcing my voice steady. I'm here for my daughter's appointment. Chloe Evans. I think I'm a little early." I used the pediatrician's name, a gamble. The receptionist nodded, checking her screen. "Chloe Evans, appointment at 10:15 with Dr. Lee for her checkup. You're Sarah, right? She's just finishing up with the nurse. She'll be right out." Sarah. The name hit me like a physical blow. Sarah. My mind scrambled. I'd heard that name before, years ago, at Mark's old company. A Sarah who'd left suddenly, right around the time Lily was born. Coincidence. Or, actually, I said quickly, my heart pounding, could I just peek in? I brought her favourite stuffed bunny. She gets anxious. It was pathetic, but the receptionist just smiled sympathetically. "Oh, of course. Room 3, down the hall. Dr. Lee's just wrapping up." I walked down the quiet hallway, my legs like lead. Room 3. The door was slightly ajar. I heard a child's voice, high and sweet. "And Daddy said I could get ice cream after." Then a woman's voice, warm, melodic, familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. "Did he now? Well, you were very brave for the shots, sweet pea." I peered through the crack. There she was, Sarah. Not just familiar, known. She was kneeling in front of the little girl, Chloe, fastening the buttons on her yellow raincoat. She had the same blonde hair as Chloe, pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked nice, tired but kind, wearing yoga pants and a soft-looking sweater. Utterly ordinary, utterly not the villain I'd imagined. And then Chloe turned her head. My breath stopped. It wasn't just the blonde hair, it was the eyes, the shape, the colour, a startling, familiar hazel. The exact same as Lily's and Mark's, but more than that. The structure of her face, the curve of her cheekbone, the way her nose tilted slightly up at the end. She looked like Lily. Not identical, but undeniably sisterly. The world didn't tilt this time. It shattered, because in that instant, I didn't see the other woman. I saw a reflection, a mirror image of my own daughter. And the horrifying, impossible truth crashed over me with the force of a tsunami. Chloe wasn't Mark's secret child with another woman. She was Lily's twin sister, and I'd never, ever known she existed. The room spun. The cheerful murals blurred into streaks of colour. The sound of Sarah's voice, "Okay, Chloe Bear, let's go get that ice cream Daddy promised," faded into a dull roar in my ears. Twin sister. Twins. Lily had a twin, but how? The pregnancy. It was hard, yes, but the ultrasounds, I'd seen the scans. Just one healthy baby. Mark had been there for every appointment. He'd held my hand through the brutal labour. How could anyone hide a twin? Unless it wasn't hidden from everyone. Sarah opened the door, Chloe skipping out ahead of her, chattering about ice cream. Sarah's eyes met mine. Confusion flickered across her face, then polite inquiry. "Can I help you?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, then at Chloe, then back at her, my mind a chaotic storm of denial, rage, and a terrifying, dawning comprehension. Sarah's expression shifted, confusion to wariness. She saw it in my eyes, the recognition, the shock, the raw pain. Her eyes widened slightly. She glanced down at Chloe, then back at me, her face paling. She knew. She knew I knew. "Mommy," Chloe tugged at Sarah's hand. "Who's that lady?" Sarah knelt quickly, putting herself slightly between me and Chloe. Her voice was calm, but tight with tension. "Just someone lost, sweetie. Let's go." She stood, gripping Chloe's hand firmly, and walked past me, not meeting my eyes again, heading for the exit. I stood frozen in the hallway, the cheerful waiting room sounds muffled and distant. The receptionist called out, "Have a great day, Sarah. Bye, Chloe," oblivious to the earthquake happening 5 feet away. I stumbled back to my car, my legs numb. I sat in the driver's seat, rain streaking the windshield, blurring the Cincinnati streets into grey watercolour. The pieces weren't just fitting together, they were exploding. Mark didn't have an affair. He had 2 families, 2 daughters, 2 lives. And I was only half of his story. Lily was only half of his children. But why? How? The pregnancy. I remembered now. The ultrasound at 20 weeks. The tech had been chatty, pointing out Lily's tiny fingers, her little heart beating strong. "Everything looks perfect," she'd chirped. Mark had squeezed my hand, beaming. "Our little girl." I'd felt a pang of guilt because I'd been stressed about work, worried I wasn't feeling maternal enough, but it was just one baby, I was sure. Unless the ultrasound missed her? Vanishing twin syndrome? But that usually happened early. At 20 weeks, unlikely. And the birth, it was fast, but intense. Just Lily. I remembered the doctor saying, "One beautiful, healthy baby girl." Mark had cut the cord, tears in his eyes. "She's perfect, Jen." Jen. My name, Jennifer. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was biological. It was fundamental. He'd erased half of his own child from my life, from her life. Chloe had a sister just an hour away, and she didn't know. Lily had a sister, and she was growing up alone, thinking she was an only child. The rage that had fueled me to Cincinnati curdled into something colder, sharper, more devastating, profound, soul-crushing grief. Not just for the marriage I thought I had, but for the daughter I never knew I lost, for the sister who'd stolen from Lily and Chloe before they ever had a chance. I drove back to Ohio in a numb haze. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and painfully bright. Everything looked the same. My street, my house, the minivan in the driveway. He was back already. Lily's pink bike on the lawn. But it all felt like a stage set. A lie. He was in the kitchen, making coffee when I walked in. He looked up, relief washing over his face. "Babe, you're back early. How was your work thing?" He sounded genuinely concerned, the perfect, worried husband. The sight of him, his familiar face, the way he tucked his hair behind his ear just like he always did, triggered something primal. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I walked straight up to him, the cold fury radiating off me like heat. "Who is Chloe?" I asked, my voice terrifyingly calm. His face went slack. All the colour drained away. His coffee mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile floor, brown liquid spreading like a stain. He didn't even flinch. "Jen," he whispered, his voice raw with panic. "How—" "I followed you to Cincinnati," I said, each word precise, cutting. "I saw you with her, at the paediatrician's. With Sarah." He sank into a kitchen chair, his head in his hands. The fight, the lies, the carefully constructed facade, it all crumbled in an instant. He looked broken, defeated. Not a villain, but a man caught in a trap of his own making. She's Lily's twin," he choked out, tears welling in his eyes. "Jen, it was an accident. A nightmare. An accident." The calm shattered. "You have a second daughter, and you call it an accident for 12 years? How, Mark? How?" He took a shuddering breath, wiping his eyes. "The pregnancy, the 20-week scan, they did see 2, but there were complications. Severe TTTS, twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. Chloe, she was the donor twin, very sick, tiny. The doctors, they said her chances were almost 0. They recommended selective reduction." He couldn't look at me. "To save Lily." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Tess. I remembered the term vaguely, a scary footnote in pregnancy books, but no one had ever told me. You agreed?" My voice was barely a whisper. "I was terrified," he burst out, finally meeting my eyes, his filled with anguish. "You were already so stressed, Jen. The doctor said the stress of carrying 2, especially with TTTS, could kill you both. They said Lily had a strong chance if we focused on her. Chloe, they said she wouldn't survive anyway. It was presented as saving Lily, saving you." He buried his face in his hands again. I thought I was doing the right thing. Protecting you, protecting Lily. I signed the papers. While you were sedated for an amnio, they said you needed anyway. I told them you understood. That it was your decision to." The betrayal deepened, became monstrous. He hadn't just hidden a child. He'd made a unilateral, life-or-death decision about my body, my pregnancy, my children, without my knowledge or consent. He'd stolen my choice, my right to grieve, my right to know. But Chloe lived, I said, the pieces finally clicking into the most horrific picture. The reduction failed? He nodded, misery etched into every line of his face. They couldn't do it. The position, it was too risky. They said they'd try to manage the TTTS, but Chloe just kept fighting. She was born 3 weeks before Lily, tiny, critical, in the NICU for months. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Jen, you were so fragile after Lily was born. Postpartum depression hit you hard. You could barely get out of bed. The doctor said, the psychiatrist said, that the trauma of losing a twin on top of everything else, it could break you, permanently. I thought, it was better if you never knew, that you could heal, that Lily could have a healthy mum. So you just gave her away. The horror was absolute. Not away, he insisted, desperation cracking his voice. Sarah, she was my sister, Jen, my sister. The word hit me like a physical blow. Sister, not an affair, not another wife. His sister. She and her husband, they'd been trying for years, infertility, heartbreaking. When she survived, and you were so unwell, Sarah begged me. She said she could give Chloe a stable home, love her, raise her as her own, that it was a miracle, and that if you ever stabilised, if Lily was older, maybe someday? He trailed off. The someday hanging in the air like a broken promise. I was weak, Jen. I was drowning. I let her. I thought I could manage it, keep it quiet, protect you, protect Lily from the pain. And Sarah, she agreed. We both thought we were doing what was best. The room was silent except for the drip of coffee from the broken mug onto the floor. My mind reeled. His sister, Sarah, the woman I'd glimpsed at company picnics years ago, who'd left town suddenly after her own miscarriage. She hadn't miscarried. She'd adopted her niece all these years, Lily's birthday parties. Sarah's family was probably having their own. Christmas. 2 sets of grandparents doting on 2 girls who shared the same DNA, the same father, but lived in separate worlds. Mark driving to Cincinnati on business trips, spending time with his other daughter. His secret family, well, I wondered why he seemed distant, why he flinched sometimes when Lily laughed, a laugh that must have sounded hauntingly like her sister's. The scale of the deception was staggering. Not just a lie, but a parallel life, built on a foundation of a decision made without me, sustained by a silence that grew thicker and more suffocating with every passing year. What about Lily? I asked, my voice hollow. Does she have health issues from the TTTS? He nodded slowly. Mild, a slightly weaker heart valve. We monitor it. Dr. Evans handles it. Sarah knows. She's been amazing with Chloe's health too. He looked at me, a flicker of desperate hope in his eyes. Jen, maybe now, Lily's older, you're stronger, maybe we could... Could what, Mark? I cut him off, the cold fury returning, sharper than before. Introduce them? Hey, Lily, meet your twin sister you never knew existed, while Mummy has a complete mental breakdown? Is that what you think happens now? He flinched as if struck. No, I thought, maybe someday... Someday is now, I said, standing up straight, a terrifying clarity cutting through the numbness. You don't get to decide what's best for me or Lily anymore. You don't get to control this narrative. I walked to the door, grabbing my keys. I'm taking Lily. We're staying with my mum. Jen, please, don't do this. I turned at the door, looking at the man I'd shared my life with for 12 years, the father of my child, the man who had orchestrated this unimaginable betrayal out of a twisted sense of protection. He looked small, lost. And the only thing I'm not doing, I said, my voice icy calm, is pretending this didn't happen, or that I'll ever trust you again. I walked out, leaving him sitting in the wreckage of his lies, surrounded by the spreading pool of cold coffee. The drive to my mum's was quiet. Lily chattered in the back seat about her unicorn drawing, oblivious to the earthquake that had just shattered her world's foundation. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, her hazel eyes, her stubborn chin, the echo of Chloe's face. My heart ached with a love so fierce it was painful, mixed with a grief so profound it felt like a physical wound. I didn't know what came next. Therapy, definitely. Lawyers, probably. Rebuilding a life from the ashes of a lie. But one thing was certain. I would find a way for Lily to know the truth. Not today, not tomorrow, but when she was ready, her sister existed, her twin. And no one, not Mark, not his well-intentioned but monstrous sister, not the doctors who thought they knew best, had the right to erase that from her life. I had been given the most brutal gift, the truth. And no matter how much it hurt, I would use it to give my daughter back the piece of herself that had been stolen, even if it meant tearing down everything I thought I knew to build something real. My husband's business trip wasn't a lie about cheating, it was a lie about fatherhood, And the daughter I found wasn't his secret shame. She was my daughter's missing half, and I would move heaven and earth to make them whole again.